Good afternoon, super coaches, and welcome to another edition of the NBA Such Is Fantasy podcast. I'm your host, Stephen DeFries, and we've got a little bit to get through today. Recording ahead of lockout on Monday. We're recording on the weekend. It's approximately 1 p.m. on Saturday, and we've had a couple of big updates that are worth discussing. But before we get into that, I want to talk about risk mitigation. So if we go through the outs this week, and some of the pain that coaches are feeling on the back of some outs, this was self-inflicted because we had injury news before the round started that should have informed some of your decisions. So let's go through them now. The first one, the most obvious trade out of the week, Denny Avdia. Now, obviously, it's impossible to watch all NBA games. We've all got full-time jobs where we're not able to keep a finger on the pulse of 30 NBA teams across 3 and 4 game weeks. However, it was widely reported that Denny Avdia had a fairly serious back injury that forced him to leave the court at the end of his last game of the week. If you saw him hobble into the locker room, he went straight to the locker room. There's plenty of clips on that on social media. And then it was almost like a funeral hearing his coach talk about the injury and the impact it could have on the team moving forward, as well as Denny's interview in the locker room where he said that whenever he can walk again, he'll be on the court. Just hearing those things, watching him go straight to the locker room, it was fairly obvious that at the very least, he's not going to play a 4-game week. As it turns out right now, he's missed the first 2 games of the week. There's 2 to go. One of them, it is a back-to-back. So I think best case scenario, he plays 1 game this week, but it's looking likely that he plays 0. Fortunately for 50% of the top 5% of coaches who didn't trade him out, they're going to get potentially a duck egg there. So again, you've got to have your finger on the pulse. And if it looks like someone's injured in NBA Supercoach, more than any other format of the game, you've just got to cut ties and move on. Don't hope, pray, wish that they're going to be okay. Make the decision, risk mitigation, he's got to go. Next one on the list was Anthony Edwards. So he's in a 3-game week. He got ruled out before lockout. So that was an obvious one. He's gone from a 3-game week to a 2-game week. Why are we holding? It's now turned into 1 game, potentially 0. He's been ruled out of tomorrow's match, and then there's a back-to-back. So he might play the second leg of that back-to-back, but that's done. So Anthony Edwards is going to play 1 or none. Denny Avdia, none or 1. So they are the 2 big ones. We've had Cooper Flagg go down. His injury did look fairly serious. He couldn't finish the match. This happened in the second quarter of his 2nd game of the week, and he's been ruled out for the rest of the week. So that was a blow for owners. He is highly owned. We also had Kawhi Leonard. Now, talking about risk mitigation, 3-game week. He's played 19 or 20 games in a row. At some point, he's going to miss. He's been on the questionable injury list for the good part of 2 weeks, and he keeps getting named. At some point, he's not going to get named. That time has come. So we now have a 2-game week for Kawhi Leonard. Now, again, risk mitigation, self-inflicted wound, 3-game week can potentially become a 2-game week. What are we doing? Hindsight's 2020. Kawhi's been phenomenal. Maybe you had other fires to put out, but quite a few coaches, 12.5% of coaches, still own Kawhi Leonard. As we move on to the next players on the injured list, as I bring up those players on my screen, Jamal Murray. Now, currently, Jamal's not slated to miss any matches. He's played 2. He's been named for today, for this afternoon. I think they kick off at 1:30 or 2 p.m. So the concern is that he doesn't play that 4th one. That's the concern I have. But to this point, coaches have been lucky with that one. So well done on the Jamal Murray injury front. I think he's going to get a rest, but maybe we'll survive that one. Your next one, highly traded in player this week, or probably semi-high, but he was a popular pickup, and that was Lauri Markkanen. And this is going to lead into the next conversation around do not pick up players from tanking teams. Okay, so what's tanking? Essentially, you can build 2 ways in the NBA. You can build a team through really shrewd free agent pickups and a star that you've already got on your team to build around. You can build through that, or you can build through the NBA draft. And the only way to do that is to get a high pick. And the only way you're getting a high pick is finishing in the bottom 4 of the entire NBA in the win-loss record column. So it makes 0 sense for Utah to be trying to win at the moment. They've won a few games that they probably didn't want to win. So now when teams tank, they get the call from the GM, Markkanen's sitting. And he's sitting this week with illness. I guarantee you Lauri's not sick. And you'll start to see these shenanigans play out now through the back end of the season as teams try and ensure they get that top pick in the draft. And this draft class, by all reports, is going to be just as good as the last one we've had, if not better. You cannot afford, if you are a mediocre team, not to have a high pick for next year. So stay away from Utah Jazz players. I know Keontae George is a very popular pickup and play right now. I'm super concerned that he starts to get rested, illness, and the shenanigans with him. So I'm just staying away from him. Right now, for owners, he's done a great job, had an awesome game to start the week. His last two performances have been a little mid. You've just got to look out for that. Now, who else is in that tanking category? So who would be tanking right now? Washington Wizards, right? Trae Young will not be available. He'll be reassessed for a quad contusion that's magically appeared since his trade to Washington after the All-Star break. As predictable as you could have drawn it up. So Washington don't want to win right now. They want to win next year, not right now. They've got a young core that they're pretty happy with. They want to see Trae Young play with Alex Sarr, and they just don't want to see it this year. Why? Because they want that top pick. So stay away from Washington players. Let's talk about the gap year Pacers. When Halliburton went down, that was a really easy decision for the Pacers. They traded out Turner they didn't trade him out. They lost him in free agency to Milwaukee. They didn't want to match that offer. What is in it for Indiana to try and win this year? Nothing. It's a gap year for them. Halliburton comes back next year. They get a higher draft pick and they rebuild and are probably right up the top of the East rankings next season. But stay away from them now, right? So we got burned with Mathurin early in the season. Don't go after Siakam. Don't go after Nembhard. Don't go after any of those players because I guarantee you very, very soon you're going to start seeing some resting, some illnesses, etc. The other teams that are potential tanking candidates and you want to stay away from those players, the Brooklyn Nets, Michael Porter Jr., again, 4-game week this week. He got picked up. He's played all games currently, but he's missing games here and there through injury maintenance and rest. That will 100% ramp up towards the end of this first mid-season trade period. He's going to be on the block. If Brooklyn can make it make sense for them to get some young players and some draft picks, Michael Porter Jr. is probably gone in this trade window. Be very careful of them ensuring that he doesn't pick up an injury and therefore resting him. They also don't want to mess up next season for themselves with draft picks, so they're also going to be tanking. So that's a double combo there. Your other teams to look out for, Sacramento, however, they've just won 4 games in a row. The worst run franchise in the NBA are trying to tank. Initially, they were trying to win this season. They built that squad and thought they had a squad that could win. Then, after building that squad, they brought in Russell Westbrook, who does not impact winning anymore. I've got a lot of love for Westbrook. He cops way too much slander. People forget who he was for the first 10 years in the league with OKC. But my goodness, to now be trying to tank and not even knowing how to do that, crazy. But stay away from Sacramento players. Sabonis is back. He's going to tempt you. Don't do it. He could be traded at any moment. No thanks. Just having a quick look. I don't think there's any other teams I'd avoid except potentially Dallas now that Anthony Davis is going to be reassessed in 4 to 6 weeks. So, will Anthony Davis be on Dallas in 4 to 6 weeks? We don't know, but they need to tank to get a high draft pick. That's the only way they're salvaging anything from the last 18 months of mess that they created for themselves. So in terms of those teams to avoid, make sure you don't pick up any of those players moving forward because you're going to get burnt. Back to some injured players and some concerns we have around questionable tags. I think we've pretty much covered them all off except for the New Orleans Pelicans boys. So Trey Murphy, I was so close to bringing in. Well done to those players who did because to date, he's played 3 out of 3. He's got a back-to-back tomorrow. If he plays that one, then you've avoided disaster. So, well, not disaster, but you've certainly avoided having a 4-game week turn into a 3-game week, and he's been on fire. He looks really good. And that's the same for people who brought in Zion. He didn't have quite the scores that Trey did, although he's having a good one at the moment as we speak. So good stuff. Well done to those that brought him in. Moving on. Let's move on to trade targets for next week. So looking at a lot of the teams in the top 5%, we've all got sort of fairly similar teams with a couple of pod differences here and there. And if we look at next week, in terms of the players you've probably got in your team, a lot of those players have a 4-game week if you've set yourself up correctly. So if you have a look at my team, for instance, we've got Shea, Maxey, and Donovan Mitchell in the guard positions, along with Amen Thompson. So Amen Thompson does not have a 4-game week. He drops from a 4-game week. I believe Houston have a 2-game week next week. I'll double check that for you in a moment. So it makes your Houston boys, Thompson, Şengün, and Durant, potential trade outs. Now, if we look at the 3 guards I mentioned who I've got in those guard positions, I've got Luka Doncic in the flex, and we'll get to him shortly. But there's all 3 of those players, Shea, Maxey, Mitchell, have a 4-game week in week 13 of NBA Supercoach. So there are obvious holds. What do we do with the Houston boys? Just double checking I was right about that 2-game week. I wasn't. It's a 3-game week. You could potentially hold your Houston Rockets. However, Cade Cunningham is back and he's in a 4-game week. So I'll be looking at a way to get Amen Thompson to Cade Cunningham as soon as possible. At the center position, I've currently got Victor Wembanyama. Now, he has a 3-game week. Giannis has a 4-game week. Something to think about. Victor's still not at full minutes. He is prone to injury. He had a knee clash with Giannis in his last match, and I'm hoping he's going to be fine for his next 2 matches this week. But I'm considering my only way that I can potentially get to Giannis for his 4-game week in week 13 of NBA Supercoach is to either trade out Wembanyama straight to him or to trade out Luka Doncic in the flex position. Now, if we get to Luka quickly, we spoke about whether he plays 5 games or he gets rested for 1 game and plays 4 games in week 12 of NBA Supercoach. He's a great pickup and you should captain him. He's just been ruled out of the first game of their second back-to-back tomorrow, so Luka Doncic will not play in game 4. He will hopefully back up and play game 5, which will still give us 4 games. Doesn't really matter what happens with Luka because he's so highly owned and highly captained. 95% owned and 92% captained. Now, I don't like him on a 3-game week. So I'm definitely going to be trading Luka, and I also do not like Jalen Johnson right now. So this is my hot take for the week. Jalen Johnson is potentially a sell next week due to the fact that he's got a 3-game week, but also because since CJ McCollum has come in, Jalen has not been good. CJ shot 23 shots in his first game. What are you doing? What's happening here? You've just walked into a new team and you've taken 23 shots. I don't think that's the role that Atlanta had in mind for CJ. If they did, I think Quinn Snyder's probably looking at a very short tenure this season. That can't be the plan they've got for CJ. You can't have Jalen Johnson sitting on the side just taking 17 shots in that game and then 13 in the other one. I mean, my goodness, CJ took nearly 20 shots in the second game of the week, and Jalen's just looked completely ineffective on offense. He's rebounding well. He's had some good assist numbers, but his shooting's been off. He's looked indecisive, and on a 3-game week, I'll also be looking to move on Jalen Johnson. So in terms of priority pickups for the week ahead, I think they're fairly obvious. I think Giannis will be at the top of the tree. You'd be looking, as I said, to either move on you'd be looking to move on maybe a Wemby because he's only on a 3-game week and he can be a bit up and down with his minutes and his reliability. You've also got to have a close look at Cade Cunningham, who's walking in to a 4-game week. He'll be coming straight in for me. He's just come off an injury concern. Detroit have just come off a 2-game week. They should be pretty fresh, but Cade Cunningham should be in your team. So if I'm running 4 guards, Shea, Maxey, Cade, and Donovan Mitchell next week all playing 4 games, I'm in a really healthy position. I'm very happy with that. And I'm sure you guys will feel exactly the same. Your other potential trade-ins for next week, look, Scotty Barnes plays 4 next week as well. I don't have him in the guards position, so I've got him in the forwards position, so that works well for me. Anthony Edwards, he's, again, got this toe infection. He's mainly only going to play 1 game. Too much uncertainty around him, so that's a no for me. Now, Jamal Murray, if he gets through 4 games this week, he's got another 4 next week. I might have a look at bringing him in. I've just got to see how that all plays out. Karl Anthony Towns is a never again for me. That guy, honestly, what are New York doing? Just trade him. Make the Giannis trade happen. Karl Anthony Towns is not going to get it done. He plays defense sometimes. There was a match last week where he took 4 shots. Like, that's not a guy with killer championship mentality that you want on your team. So if Kat ever listens to this, which I'm sure that will never happen, I don't apologize, mate. Like, seriously, get out there and do your job. Running back through the list now, LeBron James, a lot of people brought him in because the Lakers were on a 5-game week. I said there is 0 chance he plays 5. I thought he would play 4 at most, but most likely 3, and I didn't think his scoring was enough to take that chance. Well, he's put egg on my face at the moment. LeBron James has played 3 out of 3. He's not on an injury report for tomorrow at this stage. I think he probably rests the second match of that back-to-back, given Luka's out tomorrow. So owners are going to get 4 matches from LeBron, and those 4 matches, as it stands right now, are going to be potentially 120 plus points. He scored 97 in 3 so far, so well done to the king. Next up, in terms of who we should be looking at for next week, I really, 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 really like Chet Holmgren. Now, OKC have 4 games next week, and Chet looks like he's found a bit of a rhythm again in a stop-start season for him with a couple of injuries. And I think you could do a lot worse than bringing Chet in for 15.2 mil. Outside of that, I think there's going to be some talk about downgrades and who we go for in the cheapie department. I don't think at this stage of the season I need to be necessarily bringing in cheapies myself, but if I was looking at some cheapies to bring in, you've potentially got Jay Huff at 7.7, has started to see some better production at Indiana, and then Bryce Sensabaugh, 6.32 at Utah. I said be wary of tanking teams. It's the opposite when it comes to cheapies and guys that have got just sort of role players. They can see more minutes as the starters start to see reduced minutes and get resting. So I think Bryce will make some good coin for you this week and could be a potential good cheapie option for those that need to downgrade further. He's at 6.3. He's probably going to jump up to around 7 mil. So they're your best options on the cheapie front. I'm not looking to do anything too potty this week. I'm not looking to make any splashes in terms of who I'm trading in or who I'm captaining. The only thing to be aware of heading into next week is that the Joker looms large. There was a 4-week reassessment tag put on him, and we're almost at that 4-week point. I think even if he was available for the first game next week, he'd be on a minutes restriction. He'd probably still score 40 Supercoach points, to be honest, but probably not yet. We probably need, though, to be aware that we're going to be bringing him in at some point in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So make sure you've got an eye on your bank balance. Make sure you've got some in reserve so that you can make that trade happen. Just look a week or 2 ahead to ensure that you can make that trade when you need to. But outside of that, I haven't got a lot to add for Supercoach this week. Please follow me on TikTok at Such Is Fantasy, on Instagram on Such Is Fantasy, on YouTube at Such Is Sport. And I look forward to catching up with you in the next episode. I'll have a live real-time analysis of my team score for the week and who I plan on trading on my TikTok and Instagram. Until next time, thank you.